Chris Cantelmo here with another daily vibration. I want to talk about consciousness. From the beginning of time, or at least when people started realizing they were conscious, the question is, what is consciousness? And is consciousness the same for everyone? And we're gonna get to the bottom of this, because what you learn when you inhale DMT or do ayahuasca is you come to realize that the brain and our nervous system is both a computational system, a computer, through which we perceive the outside world and generate some thoughts internally, but it's also an antenna and a broadcast system. So what consciousness is it's the perception of the cosmic broadcast, in the same sense that, let's say, a television is an apparatus that is able to receive electromagnetic radiation and convert it into pictures. And that's what the brain is. Also, the brain is a system. It's a biological system that has the capacity to perceive sound waves. We can all agree sound waves we can all hear. Those of us who aren't deaf, you can hear. So the brain can interpret sound waves. Light waves, we can see light, right? You can see, I'm looking at a tree there, right? If you're not blind, you can see. The brain can interpret light. And a light is the same as electromagnetic radiation. Well, guess what? The brain can also perceive radio waves and waves in other parts of the spectrum. There are wavelengths that you can perceive when you have DMT in your brain that you cannot perceive when DMT is not in there. Now remember, DMT is an endogenous neurotransmitter. It's the neurotransmitter we have in our heads when we're kids. That's why kids can see all those little monsters and ghosts and things that parents can't see. And the amazing thing about DMT, and everyone who does DMT says the same thing, when you're in there, you see this, it's so clear. And then when you come out, it's almost impossible to describe because it's so different from the default state. Now again, if only 1 in 10 people ever said this, you might say, okay, they're just imagining it or whatever. Everybody says the same thing. So everyone who does DMT says the same thing. And the people who haven't done it can't understand it. And guess what? You never will until you do it. Last 2 minutes, and it's the most incredible 2 minutes of your life. Everything about your life is going to get better when you do DMT. What is so hard to understand about that? Why is that such a terrible thing? Is it so hard to imagine that childhood actually was a more beautiful place than adulthood? When we think back of our childhood, everyone has pretty good memories unless you were abused or something. And the reason is because when you're a kid, you have DMT in your brain and you're perceiving this incredibly beautiful world. And you can go back there, and you're supposed to go back there. Our modern society and our disrespect for our nervous systems and our pineal glands have kept us from staying in touch with that beautiful spirit world and the world of our childhood. But you can go back there. Now, why people are so against this idea is just staggering to me. I just don't understand it. If there were a downside, sure, be careful. But there's no downside. There's only an upside. So again, getting back to consciousness, what is it? It's basically the same as what happens when you turn on a TV set or a radio. Information starts pouring out of it. The TV or the radio, you can say, perceives the outside world in a way that it didn't when it was off. It's the exact same thing that's going on in the brain. When we're alive, when the cells are all working in your brain, they're perceiving information from the outside world. Now, when we're in the default setting of the brain, again, I don't know to what extent we're picking up elements of the broadcast that we pick up on DMT. Again, you can see, we all agree that people who haven't lost their sight, you can pick up light waves, sound waves, pressure waves. You can feel things. On DMT, things touch you. Entities come and they touch you sometimes. There's certain levels where you go to this one level. I like to think of it as the nuclear level. The nuclear gesture comes out and touches you. It's sort of unpleasant, but it happens. Anyway, it's just it's just amazing, and more and more people do this, and there's going to be an explosion of interest in this. There already is. More and more people are going to do it, and the people who aren't doing it are going to get left further and further behind. And there's going to be a certain point at which we're going to have to cut bait and just, say goodbye to those people who are just going to be total naysayers and just bring down humanity. We're not going to let it happen. Humanity is going to end in a beautiful way. And well, if it ever ends, it's going to find a beautiful state of existence, and it's going to require people to just be curious and want good things instead of people who seem to want bad things always. People seem to want to have a bad outcome. I'm not going to let it happen. We can't tell them, we're not going to let that happen. Love you, Chris Cantelmo, with another vibration.